Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We live in a day and age in which there is a lot of fitna. We live in a day and age where obscene, promiscuous activity between men and women has reached levels that are very, very bad. Such that you will now find it almost impossible to find a young Muslim boy or girl who is at an age where they have grown and they've protected themselves completely from this sin. And I'm not talking on the back of anecdotal experience. Research statistics have shown, and it's embarrassing and sad that I have to say this, but it's the reality that 67% of Muslim youth are sexually active as youngsters. 67%, so that's the majority. The majority of Muslim boys and Muslim girls have fallen into zina. So for this reason, it's important and it's vital that we learn and we educate ourselves how to protect ourselves from this. Brothers and sisters, our deen didn't leave anything behind. Everything has been mentioned somehow, some way. Even nowadays, people are talking about this coronavirus that's spreading, right? Like the deen even told you how to tackle these situations and these issues. If there is a virus, if there is a plague, don't go to that location, don't go to that area. And if you're from an area in which there is a plague, remain in that area and don't go out. Which they now call quarantine, right? Like Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam educated of this 1400 years ago, he told us. 1400 years plus. Our deen didn't leave anything behind. So our deen is going to tell us about specific things like a plague, or how to use the toilet. The companions were asked, did your messenger teach you even how to use the toilet? And then the companion Abu Musa al-Ash'ari radiyallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, not only did the Prophet taught us how to use the toilet, he taught us how many stones to use, which direction to face and which direction to not face when we use the toilet. The deen told us everything. Abu Dhar radiyallahu anhu said, there's not a single bird that flaps its wing inside the sky except that the Prophet of Allah, he gave us some knowledge about it. And it's true, he did sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So if these things, which you might consider sub-branch issues, we've been told about the birds, we've been told about how to use a toilet, we've been told about plagues, how can it be that the religion hasn't given us a systematic way of how to protect yourself from zina? How can it be that the religion hasn't given you a systematic way to protect yourself from that which is one of the destructive sins? Brothers, sisters, zina is not something to play around with. This filth, this crime, Allah Azza wa Jal, when He mentioned it in the context of shirk, of murder and zina. The greatest, most evil thing a person can do is to worship a God besides Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah will not forgive a person who does shirk. Allah will not forgive this person if he died on that. And then after that, it's to kill a soul without due right. And then after that, it's to do this evil crime of zina. This is a punishment that's so severe that it has consequences in this life. If a person lives in an Islamic country and he's caught or he surrenders, and it has consequences in the next life. The Prophet ﷺ was shown people who were stripped naked and placed inside of an oven, and they were being burnt. They were being burnt whilst they were naked. And the Prophet said, who are these people? He asked the angels, who are these people? He said, these are the people who used to sleep around with each other, the fornicators and the fornicatresses. This is something very, very dangerous. Does that make sense? So you need to learn how to protect yourself from this crime. This is a crime. This is a crime. It's a jurm. It is a violation of the law of Allah Azza wa Jal. So you and I need to make sure that we stay clear and far away from this. Now, in order to extract some lessons and some benefits, what I wanted to do was to bring your attention to the story of Yusuf alayhi salam. Because Yusuf alayhi salam experienced a fitna that I'm going to show you today is far worse than the fitna that any one of you and me may have experienced in the UK. Some of us think that the fitna here is unreal, it's uncontrollable. It's too bad out here. You can't protect yourself. It's too hard. Wallahi, the situation Yusuf alayhi salam was in was harder still. The situation that Allah tested Yusuf alayhi salam with, if anyone from here was in that same situation, if it isn't for the fact that Allah, if He protects you, the person would have fell into that sin. So that's what I want to bring you the example of Yusuf alayhi salam. So the first part of the discussion is going to be how bad was the fitna and how severe was the fitna of the women that Allah tested Yusuf with. The reason I want to do that is because I want to show you that you don't have it that bad. You don't have it that bad. So you can't come on the day of judgment and say, Allah, it was too hard. No. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها. Allah will not burden a soul more than it can bear. Allah burdened Yusuf with more worse than this, with something that was more intense than that. And if he was there as an example for you, and he made it out, so can you. So that's the first discussion. I don't want anyone to say the fitna in the West is too bad. There ain't no fitna like the fitna that we see today. I don't want anyone to say that, because this fitna has happened in the past and it's happened worse. And the second part, inshallah ta'ala, is going to be taking lessons from the story of Yusuf again, but how he protected himself from the fitna. How was it that despite how severe the situation was, how was it that he was still able to protect himself? We're going to take that inshallah ta'ala, and that's the discussion what it's going to be today. So brothers and sisters, in order to just give you an overview of the story, Yusuf alayhi salam was tested in many ways. After his brothers threw him inside of the well, he was picked up and taken to Egypt, where he was purchased as a slave in the house of the Aziz. Okay? And in the house that he was in with the Aziz, the wife of the Aziz, she became infatuated by Yusuf alayhi salam, because Allah Azza wa Jalla placed half the beauty in Yusuf's face. Yusuf alayhi salam, he had half the beauty. If beauty was taken, cut in half, Yusuf had half alayhi salam. So she fell in love with him. And not only did she fall in love with him, the other women from that town, from that area, they also wanted him as well. So he had a fitna that was unreal. Does that make sense? And with that said, he still managed to turn away from this fitna with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal. What made this fitna so bad? From the statements of the ulama when they explain in their tafasir of Surah Yusuf, I managed to compile 17 things that the scholars mention that show that Yusuf alayhi salam's situation, how intense it was and how difficult it was. Had me and you been in this situation, we would not have been able to protect ourselves, unless if Allah Azza wa Jalla diverted it away from us. The first thing is the fact that Yusuf had half the beauty in his face. He wasn't an ugly person. He wasn't unattractive. Which means that naturally he was a magnet for these women. These women wanted him. Does that make sense? He didn't have to try. Just by him standing there, the women, they wanted him. Number two, the woman that was calling him to the zina, قالت هيت لك. She said, let's do this now. Let's do the zina right now. وغلقت الأبواب. She locked and chained the doors shut. No one's going to get through. It's just her and him. And they say, hey, Tala, come. Me and you, we're going to do this right now. No one's going to see. The woman standing in front of him was a woman who was beautiful. She was what? She's beautiful. The Aziz, is he going to marry an ugly woman? Or an unappealing woman? He's going to marry from those who are most attractive. So not only is he himself beautiful, the woman in front of him is very attractive. And not only that, the third thing is that she's not just attractive, like she has mansab, she has status. Remember the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ when he said there are going to be 7 on the day of judgment that will be shaded on a day where there is no shade. From them is a man who is approached by a woman who had jamal, she had beauty. And she also had status. Why did the Prophet mention these two things? Because you might imagine she's a beautiful woman, but she's a ni'i. You don't know what a ni'i is in Manchester? Have you heard of ni'i? Do you guys know what a ni'i is? Or do you have a different word for a ni'i? Crackhead. You know what a crackhead? Imagine a woman, she's beautiful, but she's a crackhead. Are you going to say, yo, what's going on? Let's go, have a good time. Are you going to say that? She could be beautiful as she wants, but she's a crackhead. She's whatever she has. She's going to give that to you. So, remember, beauty isn't enough. Does that make sense? But like in what if she is what? She's royalty, but she looks like Fiona from Shrek. Are you gonna run with that? Are you gonna run with that? Would you? No. So that's why beauty is not enough to attract a woman to you, and nor is status enough. Lakin when beauty and status come together, oh, it's hard to let go. It's hard to say no. So the Prophet ﷺ said that a woman approached him. She had status and beauty. She called him for the haram. And what did he say? He said, Inni akhafullah. He said, I am scared of Allah. He's a man who will be given shade on that day. Why? Because it's hard to turn away that kind of woman. It's hard to say to that kind of woman, no. When she's telling you, I want you. Does that make sense? So these are three things that made it hard for Yusuf alayhi salam. That made it hard that he himself is attractive. The woman is attractive. And she's a princess. She's the status of a princess. Number 4, she perfumed herself. It mentions in the tafsir. Number 5, she adorned herself. It's not that she's beautiful. She wears makeup, put jewelry on. She's accentuating her beauty even more. Number 6, pay attention. Yusuf was her slave. That's why Allah said, وَرَاوَدَتْهُ الَّتِي هُوَ فِي بَيْتِهَا. The woman who he was inside of her house, she wanted him. Pay attention. Pay attention. Should a slave obey the slave master? Should the slave obey the slave master? So put the religion to the side for a second, but according to the customs of the way things worked in them days, if a slave master tells his servant, I want you to do zina with me, is he not being a good slave by obeying her? Does that make sense? So he was actually under her control. She owned him. He is her property. And she's saying, I want you to do this with me. So she owns him. Does that make sense? So that's more reason for him to give in and say yes. Not just that. Number 7, they were living in the same house. Bro, I don't care how much the fitna is in your college or your sixth form or your uni. You see those girls maybe a few hours a day. He lived in the same house as this woman. And not only that, like I said, he lived in the house as her slave. Number 8, she locked the door. No one's going to see. It's just her and him. It's just her and him. No one's going to see. Not just that, Allah said, وَغَلَّقَتِ الْأَبْوَابِ. She didn't just lock it, she locked it shut. Some of the narrations mentioned there were many doors. She locked each door within the house. Each door. As if to say that the room that she trapped Yusuf in, it had many rooms that led to it. Each door, one by one, she barricaded it shut. No one's coming through. Number 10, she actually wanted him. More time when you see a girl that's nice, you want her and you have to approach her, right? Like she's approaching him. She وراودته التي هو في بيتها. She wanted him, she desired him, she needed him. Does that make sense? So she's making the step. It's not just that she wanted him, by the way. Number 11, look at this. She vocalizes it. She says it, hey talak. Brothers, no woman's coming up to you. Hey talak means let's do zina now. I want to sleep with you now. That's what it means. It's a way to say it without it being so direct. But that it means I want to do zina with you. No woman ever came up to you and said, I want to do zina with you right now. Like this woman's coming up to Yusuf alayhi salam. She's saying, I want it right now. Does that make sense? No. Not just that, not only did she want him, not only did she vocalize it, but number 12, she was physically trying to force herself on him. Why? Because Allah Azza wa Jalla said, وَقَدَّتْ قَمِيصَهُ مِن دُبُرٍ. What did she do? She ripped his shirt from the back. What does that show you? Yusuf's trying to run away. Why did the shirt rip from the back and not the front? If it ripped from the front, that means he was forcing himself on her, right? But the fact that it ripped from the back shows that he's running away from her. She's trying to grab him, pull him back. This woman's violent. She wants him so bad. She's ripping his clothes off him. She's trying to tear his clothes apart. You've not been in this situation, my brothers. You can't tell me the fitna is bad for you. Does that make sense? Not just that, number 13, it wasn't just one woman. It was many women that were calling him to haram. It went from one to many women. Why? What's the proof that it was many women? Because later on he makes a dua to Allah. He said, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنْ. He said, Allah, if you don't divert from me, they're plotting. Not kaydaha. He didn't say if you divert from me, her plot. It shows you all of those women when they saw him. Because later on what happened? What happened? This woman, when she got exposed, her husband caught her. She was trying to force herself on Yusuf, and her husband caught her in the act. And the news started to spread. And the women in the town said, قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا. See, this woman, she became obsessed, madly in love with Yusuf. Right? We see her to be in plain error. So she made a plan. She said, you know what? No problem. She said, I'm going to teach these women a lesson. I'm going to show them. They're telling me that what? That Yusuf alayhi salam, they're telling me that Yusuf alayhi salam is from any guy and I'm wrong for falling in love with him. So what did she do? She basically invited these women and she placed fruits in front of them and she gave them all knives to cut. And then she told Yusuf, come out and walk past them. Allah Azza wa Jalla said, فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ. When they saw Yusuf alayhi salam, قَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنْ. They cut through their fingers. That's how beautiful he was. They literally sliced their finger. They cut right through their finger. And what do they say? قُلْنَا حَاشَ لِلَّهِ. They're saying, perfect is Allah. This is not a man. إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا مَلَكٌ. He is an angel. That is Kareem, honorable. Pay attention, they've cut their hands and they still don't realize. They're still saying, look at this man. They're bleeding and they're not realizing. Does that make sense? So eventually, when they cut through their hands, what do? The woman, she says, if he doesn't do zina with me now, I'm going to send him to jail. So now Yusuf alayhi salam makes dua, says, وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنْ. Allah, if you don't save me from their plotting, it's not her one anymore. It's all of them. They all are calling to the haram. Brothers, you don't walk through uni and a bag of women are chasing after you saying, yo, I want you right now. Same way, by the way, everything I'm saying to the brothers applies to the sisters. Sisters tell me, oh, there's too much fitna, the men, they all love me. First is to put in the niqab, and trust me, no man's loving you now. Except for your father and your brother and the husband who marries you. Do you understand? The point here is that whatever I'm saying here, the fitna for Yusuf, like I'm comparing it to you guys as men, it can apply to women as well. Does that make sense? No woman who's given into zina, may Allah protect her, has got a bag of men chasing after her, trying to force themselves on her. Does that make sense? Like Yusuf alayhi salam had this. Number 14, what made it harder for Yusuf alayhi salam? That they threatened Yusuf with prison. Brothers, now, wallahi, look at the levels that it's escalating. Is that they're saying after all of this, if that wasn't hard enough, the fact that they're saying, if you don't do haram with us, we are going to send you into prison. And you will become from the low. But he's her slave, he's in the house, no one's going to see, he's obeying orders, she's beautiful, he's beautiful. And he's going to go to prison if he doesn't do it. Like, and he still didn't do it. Situation is harder and intense. Number 15, what was it? He was a stranger in the land. Nobody knew him. Why is this an interesting point? Most people don't do haram in the town or the city that they're from. When they're known. Where do they go? That's how you hear people. They go Ayia Napa. They go Ibiza. Right? They go Barcelona. They go for a dirty weekend. Does that make sense? People leave. It's common. People from Saudi, they go to Dubai. People from Dubai, they come to where? They come to London. People from different communities don't like to do the haram in their own area because they know that the neighbors will see, the friends will see, the family members will see. So they go to a different town to do it. So the one who is a gharib, a stranger, he comes to a town, a village, he has to behave himself. Because the fitna is greater for him. Because if he done haram right now, why do the Americans, they go to Vegas? They all go to Vegas or Atlantic City because they have these places to go. Because they know I can't get away with this filth in my town. My neighbors will see, my friends will see. So Yusuf alayhi salam is in a town that is foreign. No one knows him. He's in Egypt. And he's not from Egypt. He's not from Egypt. So if he was to do the haram, no one would have known. No one would have known. No, it wouldn't have got back to anyone. Does that make sense? Number 16, Yusuf alayhi salam was single and unmarried. You tell me, I'm roasting. Mum, Dad make marriage hard for me. It's true. They do. A lot of times it is made hard, and it's so sad that a wedding will cost you 20 grand, but zina costs you an Odeon cinema ticket. And it's sad. It really is sad that the situation that we've come to is like that. But that doesn't give you an excuse, because you might be roasting because you're a single unmarried man. Yusuf alayhi salam was a single unmarried man. And number 17, what happened? بَلَغَ أَشُدَّهُ. He reached age of puberty. He was at the peak of his youth and his strength. So his desires at that time are strong. Does that make sense? He himself is inclined. He's a man at the end of the day, right? And the prophets are more manly than us. They are more manly than us. When they came to the Prophet ﷺ, desires with regards to his spouses, he had the strength of 100 men. He would go on occasion and he would visit all of his wives in one day for male and for husband-wife relations, to show you that this is a characteristic of men. Does that make sense? And the prophets have this desire because they're greater men than us, and it's a characteristic of manliness that ulama mentioned. So obviously theirs is going to be higher than us because they're greater men than us. So Yusuf alayhi salam had this desire. It's not that he didn't have it. Does that make sense? With these things combined, my brothers and my sisters, no one here can say that the fitna is hard, too hard for them. Because you name me one person you know in your life that's going through fitna like this. You name me one person. Only one story I heard of anyone that ever came close to this was a brother, very, very, very handsome brother, Allah barik. No homo. I'm not on that stuff. I'm appreciating it in a very platonic way. Very handsome brother, Allah barik, yeah, from Afghanistan. Very handsome brother, like just Allah barik. He looked dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like the closest you could get to maybe like a Yusuf alayhi salam kind of, obviously he's not comparing him to a prophet, but you know what I'm saying? So and wherever he would go, women would just want him. And he got a job working in Selfridges. You guys know what Selfridges, right? Selfridges. Now, in Selfridges, you have to understand, they only hire attractive men and attractive women. And it's, by the way, even attractiveness, by the way, is a very subjective thing. It's what they perceive to be attractive according to their particular context. I don't want anyone to start feeling insecure and saying, oh, because they didn't hire me in Selfridges, I'm not good looking. The point here is that they only hire those kind of people. So when it came to the men, he's probably the most good looking man in the whole store. He's probably the most good looking brother in the whole store. And all the women in that store that they've hired are what? They're all good looking. Not only that, celebrities come there. Okay? And he told me he used to work in a particular section. I won't bait it out, but he was working in a particular section in terms of the clothing. And a very famous actress came up to him. He was trying to show me how bad the fitna was for him. A very famous actress came up to him, whose name I will not mention to you. I didn't know about her until he mentioned it to me. I don't want anyone who doesn't know to go and look it up, stuff for Allah. But later on, I asked some brothers. They told me, this woman apparently is big. She must have said to him, "You're a very good looking man." That this actress, Hollywood actress or singer or something like that, she's on him. And the girls in the place used to plot how to trap him to do zina with him. So then he left. He said, "Astaghfirullah, my iman and my deen," and he went running. Does that make sense? And now Allah barik, Allah is very clear. But that's the closest I ever heard to a man being in a situation like the situation of Yusuf alayhi salam. And even him, he was miles away. He was miles away from what Yusuf alayhi salam went through. And Allah protected Yusuf alayhi salam. He protected this particular brother and many others. So you have to ask yourself, if you're falling into this sin, why? Or maybe you haven't fallen into it, maybe Allah protected you, but you need to make sure you don't fall into it in the future. You don't want to be part of that statistic. 67% are doing this haram. That's the majority, and this number is increasing. It's not getting less. So you need to know, so you can communicate this firstly to yourselves, to your loved ones, and you can even teach it to the next generations. Does that make sense? But like, now inshallah ta'ala we're going to go through the way. So now we went through the 17 things that showed how Yusuf alayhi salam's situation was worse than ours. Now inshallah ta'ala we're going to go through the 6 things that Yusuf alayhi salam did. Pay attention. We're going to go through the 6 things that Yusuf alayhi salam did because of which Allah Azza wa Jal saved him. The 6 things that Yusuf alayhi salam did because of which Allah Azza wa Jal saved him. Does that make sense? The first thing was Tawheed. That Yusuf alayhi salam came with Tawheed, he came with Ikhlas. What does Tawheed mean? Tawheed means that you worship Allah Azza wa Jal alone. And when you do an act of ibadah, you do it khalisan lillah. You do it sincerely for the sake of Allah Azza wa Jal. You do not do this act of worship because you're trying to associate any partner with Allah Azza wa Jal. Does that make sense? You don't show off in your salah. You don't have riyah. You don't have bad intentions when you pray. You don't pray and you don't call out to anyone besides Allah. You call out only to Allah Azza wa Jal. Your ibadat are only for Allah Azza wa Jal. Does that make sense? He came with tawheed, he came with ikhlas. What's the dalil? Allah said, وَلَقَدْ هَمَّتْ بِهِ وَهَمَّ بِهَا لَوْلَا بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. Allah said she desired him. The woman, she wanted Yusuf. وَهَمَّ بِهَا. And he would have also been inclined to wanting her. He's a man at the end of the day. He would have wanted her. لَوْلَا أَرَّأَى بُرْهَانَ رَبِّهِ. If it wasn't for the fact that Allah, He showed His signs to Yusuf. Allah saying Yusuf could have fell into the sin himself. But this is a powerful statement here. He's a prophet of Allah. Allah saying he could have fallen into it himself if it wasn't for the fact that Allah intervened. And Allah said, كَذَلِكَ لِنَصْرِفَ عَنْهُ السُّوءَ وَالْفَحْشَاءَ. Allah said, I like that we diverted from Yusuf evil and filth. Allah saying, I diverted the filth from Yusuf. Yusuf never diverted himself independently. Allah said, Allah diverted it from him. Why? إِنَّهُ مِنْ عِبَادِنَا الْمُخْلَصِينَ. And another qira'ah, مُخْلِصِينَ. From the sincere slaves. The mukhlis slaves. The ones who came with Tawheed. Remember, ikhlas is the essence of Tawheed. And Tawheed is La ilaha illallah. La ma'buda bihaqqin illallah. That you worship no one. There is no one worthy to be worshipped in truth except for Allah Azza wa Jal. Does that make sense? And ikhlas is the true essence of that. And that's what Tawheed is. So when Allah said, Yusuf, the reason we saved him, and Allah said we diverted him from that filth is because Yusuf was muwahid. He was a man of Tawheed. He was a man of La ilaha illallah. He was a man of ikhlas. He was a man of sincerity. Why? Ikhlas is to purify your worship, to make it only for Allah, to take shirk away from it. So the ulama, they say, Man khallasa lillah. Anyone who makes his actions sincere for Allah, anyone who makes his actions sincerely for the sake of Allah, خلص الله من الشرور. Allah will purify him. Anyone who makes his action pure for Allah, he worships only for Allah, he calls out only to Allah, he makes dua only for Allah, he purifies his actions from shirk for Allah, Allah will purify him from evil. Does that make sense? So know that if you're falling into sins and you're falling into evil, whatever the evil may be, it may be women, it may be drugs, it may be disrespecting your parents, it may be haram money, backbiting, whatever it is, you have to understand something, brothers. You don't have the ability to protect yourself. Allah is the one who protects you. وَمَنْ يَعْتَصِمْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ هُدِيَ إِلَىٰ صِرَاطٍ مُسْتَقِيمٍ. Allah Azza wa Jal said, whoever holds on to Allah, he is guided to the straight path. Allah guides to the straight path. You don't guide to the straight path. You don't walk the straight path. That's why every day in your salah you say, Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Guide us, O Allah, to the right path. Because you can't guide yourself. You need to be guided. Does that make sense? That's why the Prophet would make the dua every day. Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. O the one who turns the hearts. Turn my heart and keep it firm in your religion. Keep it firm in the religion. We're lost. The Prophet said, like even you make this dua. Like you're the Prophet of Allah, your heart is going to be firm. The Prophet ﷺ, he mentioned that the hearts are between the fingers of Ar-Rahman. He tosses and turns it how he wills. Allah can toss your heart in the direction of the deen. And if Allah sees, and when will Allah toss your heart in direction of the deen? Tawheed, when He sees that in you. When Allah sees you're trying to come with Tawheed, you're learning Tawheed, you're studying Tawheed, you're implementing Tawheed, Allah Azza wa Jalla will take your heart and put it firm and He protect you from evil. Like, if you're not learning Tawheed, and pay attention, if you don't learn Tawheed, then shirk will enter inside of you. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, the thing that I fear for you most is what? Greater than the fitna of Dajjal, الشرك الخفي أو كما قال. The hidden shirk. Another narration, the Prophet ﷺ, he said this shirk will enter inside of a person's heart. He will come to him undetected, like a black ant underneath a stone. Ibn Abbas added in another narration, underneath a dark sky. Can you see that ant? If an ant walks and it hides under a stone, and it's a black ant and it's a dark sky, can you see that ant? That's how shirk will creep up inside you. That's how shirk will creep up inside you. That's why the Prophet told us to make that Allahumma inni a'udhu bika an ushrika bika wa ana a'lam. To say, Allah, I seek refuge in you from the shirk that I have done, and I knew I was doing it. And I ask you to forgive me for the shirk that I done and I wasn't aware. That means you can fall into shirk and not be aware. You can fall into shirk and not even know. Does that make sense? So how do you protect yourself? You learn Tawheed. You study Tawheed. Brothers, people will tell you, oh, you don't need to study Tawheed, you're already Muslim. That's a lie. The Sahaba were already Muslim. In Mecca, they were studying Tawheed. In Medina, Allah said to them, فَعْلَمْ أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا. Rather, the ayah, the khitab of the ayah is what? To the Prophet himself. Allah said, فَعْلَمُوا. He said, فَعْلَمْ, O Muhammad, I'm commanding you, have knowledge, أَنَّهُ لَا إِلَهَ إِلَّا اللَّهِ. There is none worthy to be worshipped truthfully except for Allah. Like the Prophet could have turned around and said, I know La ilaha illallah ya Rabb, you've been teaching it to me. I mean, I called to it, that's my job. That's why you sent me out. وَلَقَدْ بَعَثْنَا فِي كُلِّ أُمَّةٍ رَسُولًا أَنْ يَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَاجْتَنِبُوا الطَّاغُوتَ. That's why I'm here. Like the Prophet didn't. You know why? Because Allah is just reminding, La ilaha illallah, you can never have enough of it. You need to constantly be reminded of it. In the context where Allah told you the purpose for which He created you, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I didn't create man or jinn for any other reason except but to worship me. What did Allah say before that? فَذَكِّرْ. Remind them. فَإِنَّ الذِّكْرَ تَنْفَعُ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Because the reminder benefits the believers. And then Allah taught you Tawheed. Then Allah reminded you Tawheed. You know! Allah is reminding you. Because this reminder is beneficial. So learn La ilaha illallah. Learn Tawheed. Because the more you learn about Allah and how He deserves to be worshipped alone, and how shirk is something that you should be staying away from, and you purify your ibadah from any taint, whether it be major shirk or minor shirk, hidden shirk or apparent shirk, Allah will start to now purify you from sins. That's the connection. Does that make sense? This is from Allah Azza wa Jal's, His ahkam kawniyah, from Allah's universal, legislation that He placed. That this is the way it will work. You stay away from sins. So you stay away from shirk, and you become firm in Tawheed, and Allah will protect you from sins and keep you pure upon obedience. Like in a person whose Tawheed is weak, he cannot protect himself from these sins. Does that make sense? He cannot. So ya ikhwa, you have to learn Tawheed, number one. Does that make sense? And I spent a bit of time on that because that's the most important thing. Does that make sense? Even Shaitan, what did he say? He said, Allah will misguide all of your slaves, except for those who are mukhlasin. Even Shaitan said, I will misguide everyone, but I can't misguide the slaves. I can't misguide the sincere ones. They have sincerity. Sincerity is not something I can work with. They have Tawheed. I cannot come to a man who has Tawheed. Shaitan, he gave up on that man. Does that make sense? So you might say, oh, so this is me studying Tawheed, but how does that protect me from zina? Allah protects from zina, that's the point. Allah protects from fahsha. Allah protects from evil. You just learn Tawheed. You implement Tawheed, and then Allah will purify you from the rest. Of course, you call out to Allah, you make dua to Him, you ask Him to help you. That's the first thing, yeah? Number two, know what? That Allah is watching you. Muraqabatullah. That Allah is constantly observing you. And He knows each and every single thing that you do. And He hears everything that you say. And He hears everything. Wallahi, brothers, nothing escapes the eyes of Allah Azza wa Jal. You know when a bee flaps its wings, Allah sees every single individual flap of that bee's wing. When a fly swallows, Allah sees the gulp of the swallowing in the fly's neck when he swallows. Allah sees that clear. Me and you can't see that. We need telescopes, microscopes. Allah hears. What is it? The woman came and complained to the Prophet ﷺ about her husband. Allah said, قَدْ سَمِعَ اللَّهُ قَوْلَ الَّتِي. Allah said, Allah heard the statement of the woman who? What? Who came to you about her husband. Allah heard her statement. Aisha radiallahu anha said, I was in the room next door and I didn't hear. And Allah was above his throne, above the seven heavens, and he heard. Allah hears everything, brothers. Allah sees everything, brothers. Allah is aware of everything. Not only does he see, but he records it all down. He's Al-Hafiz. And he has placed what? He has placed two angels, one on each side, and they are writing everything down. It will be brought before you on the Day of Judgment. Like when a person has this in mind, that Allah is watching, and he constantly reminds himself of this, it will be a reason for him to stay away from the evil. Does that make sense? That's why Imam Muhammad al-Amin al-Shanqiti rahimahullah ta'ala, he mentioned in his Adwa al-Bayan, he said the ulama have ijma' that the greatest and most powerful reminder, maw'idha, is that you tell a person Allah is watching you. Because if a person really believes in Allah, His names, His attributes, and you say Allah is watching you, that makes them stop in their tracks. Allah is watching me. Let me fix up. Does that make sense? So that's the second thing. The third thing, brothers, is what? Dua. Oh brothers, you have to make dua to Allah to save you from zina and all sins. Why? Because look at the dua that Yusuf made. وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنْ وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. He said, Allah, if you don't divert me from their plotting and their planning, he said, I will be inclined towards them. This is Yusuf telling you, Allah, if you don't save me, I'm going to fall into it. وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. I'll become from the ignorant ones. So he's saying, Allah, I need you to help me. I need your madad, Ya Rabb. Because I cannot save myself. I cannot get myself out of this mess. So why is it that you don't raise your hands and ask Allah? So many of you are struggling with sins. Whatever that sin may be. It may not be something like zina, but it could be disrespecting your parents. It could be backbiting. Why don't you ask Allah to protect you from backbiting? Why don't you ask Allah, Allah help me, Allah aid me? You know our religion, wallahi, it has so much emphasis on making dua. To be guided, to be protected from evil. The Prophet would make dua, Ya muqallib al-qulub, thabbit qalbi ala dinik. Oh, the one who turns the hearts, turn my heart firm in your religion. Ibrahim would say, Rabbi junubani wa baniya na'bud al-asnam. Divert me and my children from worshipping idols. Ibrahim smashed idols as a child, as a boy with his own hands. That's the least type of shirk that you think he would ever be scared of. Like he's so scared, he's saying, Ya Allah, اجعلني في جانب آخر في جانب. He said, oh Allah, place me in one side of the earth. والأصنام في جانب آخر. And place these idols that are being worshipped beside you in another side of the world. Keep me far. He doesn't say, Allah, take me away from it. He said, divert me, place them in a different part of the world. Muba'ada, it shows distance, far, keep him far from me. He's so scared because he understands that Allah is the one who guides and Allah is the one who can prevent guidance from coming to you. That's what the Prophet used to tell us to make this dua. Allahumma ati nafsi taqwaha. Oh Allah, please bring to my soul piety. Make it fear you, Ya Rabb. Make it take a shield, a wiqaya against you, against me and your punishment and your anger. Right? Why? Because Allah, you are the best of those who purify the soul. You are the one who purifies it. Because you have to ask Allah. You have to beg Allah, Allah help me, Allah aid me. I can't do this. I am a faqir, Ya Rabb. I am stuck, Ya Rabb. I have no resources. I have no ability to protect myself from evil. That's why you see the prophets what? They're constantly asking Allah Azza wa Jal for His help. The moment the woman asked, Yusuf, I didn't mention earlier, I'll mention now. When she said to him, hey Talak, come let's do zina. What was the first thing Yusuf said? Ma'adallah. He said, I seek refuge in Allah from this. Straight away. He asked Allah for help. And Allah Azza wa Jal, He aided him. So brothers, you have to make dua, constantly turning back to Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Number 4, brothers, you have to fear Allah. Fear Allah. Khashyatullah. You need to fear Him. Okay? And one of the things that helps you to fear Allah is to actually say the statement, I fear Allah. Why? Because remember the hadith I told you earlier about the people who are going to be shaded on the day of judgment? From them is a man who's approached by a woman who has what? She has status and she has beauty. What did the man say? The Prophet didn't say he feared Allah. The Prophet said he said, Inni akhafullah. He actually said it, I fear Allah. From this the ulama they took. Say it. Say at the time, the opportunity, whatever it could be, zina, whatever the sin it could be. If the sin is in front of you, say, oh, I fear Allah. Just say it at that time. When you vocalize it, what happens? It has an effect. And if it didn't have an effect, the first, say it again. Inni akhafullah. I fear Allah. Say it again. Until it kicks in, until it kicks in, until it kicks in. Does that make sense? The fifth thing, brothers, is to refuse and to reject the fitna. Yusuf alayhi salam rejected the fitna. He said no. He didn't say, he said, through his actions, said no. Does that make sense? He was not going to it. Some of us, we don't refuse the fitna, we accept it. We want it, we like it, we enjoy it. In our hearts, we want it. Like he's refused it, he's rejected it. And the sixth and final thing, sorry, there's 7 points, but the sixth point is, this is the point. The sixth point is to reject the sin, to reject the fitna, to run away from the fitna, to turn away from the fitna. And what's the proof that Yusuf turned away from the fitna? What did he do? فَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. He ran towards the door. But this is a very powerful point. Pay attention. Yusuf didn't just say, oh Allah help me. He didn't just say, Ma'ad Allah, I seek refuge in you, Allah. He didn't just say that. He didn't just say that. فَاسْتَبَقَ الْبَابِ. He ran for the door. Some of us, we say, I fear Allah, but you go to work in a place where you know you're going to end up committing zina with one of those women. Some of you say, what? I fear Allah, but you still follow people on Instagram, or you have people on your social media, your Snapchat, that you know are tempting you every time you log on, you see them on your timeline, on your explore page. You don't run away from the fitna. You say, Ma'ad Allah. You say, A'udhu Billah. You say, Inni akhafullah. Like, and you don't run from the fitna. It's not enough to just say, oh Allah, I'm scared. Oh Allah, help me. Allah wants to see you run. Allah wants to see you make a step. And what shocked me personally is that Yusuf alayhi salam, he wanted to run away from the fitna so far that he said, Allah, put me in prison. He said, put me in prison. This person shocked me. قال ربي السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. He said, my Lord, the prison is more beloved to me than what they're calling me to. He's saying, Allah, send me to prison. He made dua for prison, brothers. He wanted to stay away from the evil so much, he said, Allah, send me to prison. And Allah said, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. His Lord accepted his dua. فَصَرَفَ عَنْهُ كَيْدَهُمْ. And he diverted from him their plotting and their planning. He really wanted to stay away from this sin. To the point where he was willing, he was asking, he was begging, he was making dua. Allah, send me to prison. I want prison above this. And there we are. And we're not tested like that. We'll just fall into this sin. And today's topic and discussion was around zina. Like in everything I mentioned today, all the other sins can fall under it as well. Does that make sense? By the way, it wasn't just Yusuf alayhi salam who ran away from the fitna. For the women who are listening, Maryam salamun alayha was like that as well. When Jibreel came to Maryam, and he came in the form of a man, and Allah sent him, what did Maryam say when she saw Jibreel? She said, I seek refuge in Ar-Rahman from you. In kunta taqiyya, if you fear him. Maryam was like, some sisters, like, look at them. They play very dumb, like, they play the naive card very well. Man will come, and now she's doing haram with him. But when he came to me, he just came to ask me for homework, or he just came to ask me for the directions. He just came to ask me something general. That's why you fell into this trap, because you opened the door. Maryam from the beginning, salamun alayha, she said, stay away from me. She didn't allow Jibreel to speak. She didn't ask Jibreel, what are you here for? Is there a reason? Is there a haja? Is there a need? Can I help you? She said, get away from me. Fear Allah. Get away. I seek refuge in Allah from you. Imagine that. Imagine that. What guy is going to be onto your case the moment he talks to you? Say, fear Allah, bro. I seek refuge in Allah from you. A'udhu billah. If you had that kind of an attitude, you'd be protected from these men. But because you don't, is why you end up getting used and abused. Does that make sense? To conclude, inshallah ta'ala, brothers, I just want to mention a side point. Is that Yusuf alayhi salam, he combined between inner beauty and outer beauty. The outer beauty I've already mentioned. Half the beauty was placed in his face. Not only that, when the women, they saw him, they refused to accept him as a man. Ma hada basharan. This is not a human, they said. In hada illa malakun kareem. This is not accepting a noble angel. So he had external beauty. Lakin he also had internal beauty. Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't look at your faces and your bodies and your sizes. He looks at your hearts. On the Day of Judgment, a big weighty man will come and he'll be weighed on the scale, and he won't be worth to Allah even the weight of a fly. Does that make sense? Lakin Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu will come, who was a Sahabi of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, whose legs were so small and skinny that the wind would sometimes blow hard and it would push him away. Like the Prophet said, those shins of Ibn Mas'ud are going to weigh, I can't remember if the hadith was equal to or greater than the amount of Uhud in the sight of Allah Azza wa Jal. What made his shins heavy? It wasn't the shins themselves, it was his heart, it was his a'mal, it was his iman. Does that make sense? Nowadays we're very superficial. We talk about the outer, how we see him from the outside. Even when it comes to the deen, like we focus more on our thobe and how iron and starched our thobe and our shimagh is than our hearts. Imam Hassan al-Basri used to say, these people who are so concerned about their garments and their thobes when they come for the Friday prayer, if only they were that concerned about their hearts. So the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, it teaches us to work on our hearts. In this day and age, we're all about designer clothes and nice shoes, and I'm not saying these things are bad. I'm not saying these things are bad. Who doesn't mind a pair of Gucci trainers? I know I don't. But the issue is that we've really neglected that which counts. Nothing will benefit you. No wealth, no children on the Day of Judgment. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهِ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. Except for a person who comes to Allah on the Day of Judgment with a heart that is pure, healthy. With that said, that's the end of the talk. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
Assalamu alaikum. I have a question for you. From all of my videos online that you might have seen, which one has been the most life-changing one for you so far? Many people told me that it was the video when we gave da'wah outside the shisha cafe.
And I'll leave you with this. The Prophet ﷺ said, a time will come when holding on to my religion, holding on to Islam, will become as difficult as holding on to charcoal. The charcoals that we smoke shisha with. The Prophet said, try and hold on to it. It burns you, let go of it. The Prophet ﷺ said, that's what my religion will become like. Is it not like that today?
Or perhaps you're from those who said it was that lecture that everyone was asking about, the one I did on the issue of death.
Send me back. Please send me back. I'll pray this time. I'll dump that girl this time. I won't play around with the girls no more. No more cigarettes, no more weed, no more watching things online, no more talking to the guys, no more music, no more disrespecting my parents. I will pray. Allah, please send me back. Tell these angels, hold me down for a second. Send me back. Just 2 minutes. Send me back. Oh, let me die with my head on the ground in sajda. Let me die. But Allah said, no. Not be able to return. They will scream, Rabbi rji'ooni. Send me back, my master, please.
Or maybe it was one of the other 1,000 plus videos that we have online. Whatever it was, I want to ask you a follow-up question, and that is, I want you to remember and record what life was like before you saw that video, when you were distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, when you're thinking of that and remembering that, I want you to be aware that there are many brothers and sisters who are still living life like that, far and distant from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They still haven't seen that one video that's going to help change their life. They haven't seen that one reminder that's going to touch them and bring them out from the darkness of sins to the brightness and the light and the happiness of guidance. But that doesn't mean that there isn't hope for them. They just need to come in contact with that kind of content online. And that's why myself and my team are dedicating the next 3 months, inshallah ta'ala, to flooding the internet with as much content on Tawheed and Sunnah and reminders about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as possible. But the issue is that in order for us to reach those targets, we're limited in terms of the resources that we have. We need to hire more people in our media team. We need to also buy new equipment. Now look, I am going to ask you to support this financially, but I'm not going to ask you for crazy numbers. For us, we don't need that kind of money. We need little money because we have a team that really believes in this. And the proof is in the pudding. If you see what we've done over the last summer, subhanAllah, you can see that the work that gets done, that money goes to where it deserves to be placed. So I'm going to ask you, inshallah ta'ala, because you're a person who's benefited from this YouTube channel, you're a person who's benefited from my video, I want you to be able to give the gift of that video that helped change your life to someone else by donating at the link below. And remember, the Prophet ﷺ said, none of you will truly believe until you love for your brother, by extension your sister, what you love for yourself. And what you love here for them is what guidance, the way you love it for yourself. So please, inshallah ta'ala, give it the link below and let's flood the internet with La ilaha illallah.